can you imagine how fucking terrifying it would be to be a literal child in a sandpit at school and be not only held down and strangled so you can't breathe, but have someone shoving sand down your fucking throat? Like, that girl literally would have thought she was gonna fucking die. Like, that's horrible. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I mean no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everyone who was hurt within this story the utmost peace and solace, either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, happy True Crime Thursday. This week's true crime video is about one of the most infamous child killers in the world, a girl by the name of Mary Bell. I love teen killers and child killers. I just find it really disturbingly interesting that someone can kill like being so young. Like, I don't know, I find it really interesting. So I do a lot of teen killers or child killers on my channel, but this one is pretty full on. It's a kid killing a kid, and it's really heartbreaking. So if you're not into that kind of stuff and you don't feel like being sad today, maybe don't watch this one. Mary Flora Bell was born on the 26th of May 1957, which made her only 10 years old at the time of her crimes, which is crazy, and she lived in Newcastle, England. She was born into a pretty dysfunctional family, if you could even really call it a family. Her mum, whose name was Betty, gave birth to Mary Bell when she was only 17 years old, so that's super young, and it's actually unclear as to whether or not Betty knew who Mary's biological dad was or not, but Mary never did. She never met her biological dad. It didn't matter like a great deal though, because shortly before Mary Bell was born, Betty got married to a man named Billy Bell. That is such a great name. I fucking love that. So Billy Bell was an alcoholic and a petty criminal, and a not so petty criminal. Like, he was just a criminal and not the greatest person to be around. So he wasn't like the best father figure that you could ever possibly have. And on top of his like antisocial traits, Betty had a lot of her own. It wasn't all just Billy Bell who was like a bad influence, it was a little bit of Betty as well. She suffered from bipolar disorder, and as I said, she was only 17 years old when she had Mary Bell, and she wasn't ready to have kids. Physically, mentally, financially, she wasn't ready to have a baby. And because of that, it's reported that she did try to kill Mary Bell as a baby and as a toddler on more than one occasion. So Betty's family members claimed that Betty was trying to kill Mary Bell and then like frame it as an accident, and that's pretty much what was happening. After only a couple of weeks of being alive in the earth, Betty tried to kill Mary Bell. She tried to throw her out of a window and make her death look like an accident, but obviously she survived. And then not so long after that, Mary Bell consumed some of her mother's sleeping pills, and a family member claimed that Betty willingly gave her these pills and like pretended they were sweets. Like, here, have some, I don't know, like, here, have some pills that I'm pretending are sweets, like yum yum, like I don't fucking know. But apparently they claimed they had seen this happen on more than one occasion. They'd seen her willingly giving Mary Bell pills, and so this time when it was like a lot of pills, they assumed the same thing, that it was by Betty. Betty was trying to kill her. And it's not like Betty didn't try to get rid of Mary Bell in other ways. She tried to like offload her onto almost every single family member, and like they just didn't want her or couldn't have her, like didn't have the means necessary to have another child. Like, it wasn't their child, it's not really their responsibility, and they didn't take her, which is kind of scary in of itself, because if you know a mother is trying to kill their baby, maybe you should take it, I don't know. Anyway, Betty worked as a sex worker for majority of Mary Bell's life. So as Mary Bell was growing up, Betty would work as a sex worker mostly from home, but she did occasionally travel for her work, so she would go away for weeks at a time So she was like really inconsistent with how much she was around. So they lived in a pretty poor town of Newcastle called Scotswood. And just like Betty, a lot of the women in the neighborhood worked as sex workers. And also like Betty, a lot of the women in the neighborhood were mothers. And furthermore, half of them were single mothers. So it made it really, really difficult for all of these working women to look after their kids while simultaneously working. So that kind of resulted in a lot of the kids all like hanging out in the streets, in the parks, playing like around the houses. It was just like a big community of kids who would all hang out with each other because their mums were at home working and their dads were like off at work if they had dads, and if they didn't have dads, like there was nothing for them to do at home by themselves. So that was over explained, I feel like. And as I'm sure you can imagine, sex work usually happens pretty late in the night, so that also meant that not only were the kids like out in the community playing with each other, babysitting each other essentially, they were doing it till very late hours of the morning because their mothers were still at home working till very late hours of the morning. So it got a little bit dangerous when there's like 2-year-olds hanging out with a bunch of kids at like 1 a.m. You know what I mean? Anyways, Mary, she had like 1 or 2 friends here or there, but for the most part, her classmates recall her as being really scary. She was really aggressive. She had a really, really bad temper that was kind of easy to set off, and like the kids didn't want to play with her because they were fucking scared of her. So she would get in these big, massive like temper tantrums where she would just like tense up and start shaking and her eyes would bubble and it looked like there was about to be like smoke coming out of her fucking ears. Like she would get very, very worked up and very, very angry to the point that it was scaring the other kids. And because of all of this anger, she was known to, express it violently. She didn't know how to like handle it, and she didn't know how to express it or keep it in. So she would just be violent. And one of the ways that she would be violent is she would just automatically reach out and grab people's throats or grab their necks and like choke people, which is fucked. And she was also known for like hitting and scratching and kicking and lashing out in other ways. She'd even been reported to the teachers for putting out cigarettes on the other kids, which is like fucking crazy. That's so wrong. But she was most remembered for, known for always like going for people's throats when she was having these little violent outbursts. When she was only 8 years old, she was at school and she had one of these little temper things and she lashed out and started to choke someone, except this time it actually got really quite serious. It got to the point where she was choking this girl and her lips were turning blue and her face was going pink and she was like could not breathe. And there was a crowd of students watching them and only one older kid came and broke them up. And like, thank goodness that this kid did that, because had he not have broken them up, that girl could have seriously been hurt or even killed. Like, I don't know how far that could have gone, but it was way too far and went on for way too long and was a massive warning sign that something needed to be done. But for whatever reason, the teachers didn't punish her. Why am I not surprised? But Mary did have one really good best friend, and her name was Norma Bell. And they're not related. It's so weird that they have the same name. They literally have no relation. She's not related to Billy Bell either. Like, it was just a common name, I guess. But they were best friends, and Norma was actually her neighbor. So Norma had a mental disability which resulted in her like mental maturity being a little bit younger. So she was actually older than Mary Bell, but mentally she was like maybe 1 or 2 years younger. So it was easy for them to be friends. It was also easy for them to be friends because Mary Bell was very smart and manipulative and definitely like took on a dominant role, and for someone whose like mental age is a little bit younger, it was easy for her to be a bit more submissive. So like it just went well for them because Mary Bell could kind of tell her what to do and she would just happily do it. On the 11th of May 1968, both Norma and Maribel went and picked up a 3-year-old boy from the street, like he was just hanging out, and they went and got him, and they decided to go and buy some, like, lollies. They went to go buy some sweets. An hour later, though, that same boy was found walking around the road by himself, like, in a complete daze, confused, and, like, didn't know what he was doing or where he was going, and it was really scary. Like, he's only 3 years old, and it was late at night, he was really cold, he was bleeding, and so police and ambulance got called, and nothing happened. He was fine, the kid was fine, so he got sent home, and then that was that. The very next day, a woman visited the police station and made a report against Maribel, claiming that she had strangled this woman's daughter. Her daughter's name was Pauline, and they'd been playing in a sand pit when Maribel had a fit of rage and decided to choke this girl, Pauline. So she choked her and started strangling her, and had Norma actually sit on top of her so that she couldn't get up. Like, there was no way for her to try and struggle or fight Maribel off because she had Norma sitting on top of her. She strangled her to the point where she couldn't breathe, but then to top it off, Maribel decided to start stacking sand into Pauline's mouth. And Pauline says that Maribel couldn't get it in fast enough, and she started getting frustrated with, like, the amount of sand that she could fit into this girl's throat. So she started shoving it in her nose and her throat, and she started shoving her fingers further down her throat and further up her nose to fit more sand in. Can you imagine how fucking terrifying it would be to be a literal child in a sand pit at school and be not only held down and strangled so you can't breathe, but have someone shoving sand down your fucking throat? Like, that girl literally would have thought she was gonna fucking die. Like, that's horrible. That's so fucking scary. Like, ugh. Norma apparently got spooked when she started, like, shoving the sand down her throat, though, because at that point she actually jumped up and sort of walked away, and by then Pauline was able to break free from Maribel, which is really, really lucky, because if Norma hadn't have gotten scared and gotten off her, would she have died? Like, would Maribel have stopped? Would that have been good enough for her? Problem was, though, in the police report there was no mention of sand, because poor Pauline, bless her fucking heart, she was so scared of Maribel and what Maribel could do. Like, she'd already seen that she's very violent. She was too scared to tell her mum about the sand incident, because she thought that if Maribel got in trouble, she would come after her again. And she was, like, traumatized, as you fucking would be, of this choking sand incident thing. So she didn't tell her mum, and so her mum didn't know when she made the police report that it was actually a lot more sadistic and cruel than just, like, a child, like, reaching out for your throat, which is what they basically, like, tried to play it down as. It was just like, she was angry, like, it's fine, she's fine. It wasn't fucking fine. So again, nothing was done, and there were no consequences, as usual. 2 weeks after that, Maribel decided she would take things a little bit further than that. On the 25th of May 1968, just a day before Maribel's 11th birthday, a little boy called Martin Brown was reported missing. Martin was only 4 years old, which is so fucking young. He was like a cute little blonde boy. He had blue eyes. He had the biggest, happiest smile. He was like this cheeky little thing. All of his family described him as just being happy and bubbly and full of energy and super, super cheeky. There was one story that I think his mother told about him filling up like a bottom drawer full of water so that he could sit in it like a pool, and like he flooded the whole place and like stuff like that. Like, he was just a really cheeky, happy, funny kid. And he was beautiful, and he was so fucking loved. And 4 years old. 4 years old. So on this day, he was out with the neighborhood kids playing with his friends. And being in this poorer neighborhood, there was actually a lot of abandoned houses. So there was heaps and heaps of like double-story or one-story houses that no one had lived in for years, that the kids would all play in. And some of these were like really dangerous because they were like rotting and falling apart, but some of them were like pretty okay. So the kids played in them a lot. They were like little hangout areas, so it wasn't like abnormal by any means. And one of Martin's friends noticed him on the second story, and he's alone and he's laying down and he doesn't really look okay. So he decides he's gonna go run across the road and tell Martin's mum. So he does this, and then she comes sprinting across the road with the kid, trying to find Martin and see if he's okay. And by the time she gets there, there's like a big crowd of people. There's kids crowding. There were a couple of adults by now. And she sees a man carrying Martin on like his shoulders out of this abandoned house. And the ambulance is called, and they jump in the ambulance, and he's pronounced dead on arrival. So at this point, an investigation is started, and there were some weird theories for how this boy died. He was found next to a couple of like pills. So at first they assumed he'd had these pills and that's what killed him. But upon doing an autopsy, there wasn't a cause of death. So they didn't really know if it was pills or not. So then some people thought, well, he'd walked upstairs and found these pills and he thought they were lollies. He thought they were sweets, so he decided to eat them, and then that's how he died. And then someone else thought maybe one of the older kids gave it to him thinking that it was lollies, and then that's how he died. And then someone suggested that because he was like, this kid was 4 years old and he was apparently terrified of heights, they suggested that a friend had helped him get upstairs because of like, it's abandoned houses, it wasn't like easy to just walk up the stairs, and they said that maybe he had just frozen and died of shock, like literally just dropped dead because he saw that he was on the second story. I don't know, weird theories. But in the end, he was just literally pronounced dead of natural causes because they couldn't find out like why he died. Not sure if they really put enough effort into this one, but at 4 years old, he was pronounced dead by natural causes. Really? The next day, Maribel is back at it again, choking another friend, except this time it's actually Norma. She's fucking choking her best friend Norma in Norma's house, no less. Like, at least have some fucking manners and do it somewhere else. I'm sorry, my throat is so fucked and my nose is so blocked up. I don't know if I'm gonna sound bad on camera, but I sound so bad to my own ears right now. I actually want to punch myself in the face. Sorry. So Norma's dad walks in the house and sees Maribel on top of Norma, choking her out, and so he pulls them apart and then like doesn't care. He thought that they were just playing a game and it got a little bit too violent, so he was like, don't play that again. And then that was it. Like, what? What? You just saw your daughter being choked out. The next day, the police get a call about a nursery that's been broken into, and so they go and check it out, and it's been like completely ransacked. Everything's all smashed up or like fucked around or messed about, whatever, and like nothing's stolen. They can't see like a real reason that anyone would do this. And then they find 4 notes like left behind on purpose for the police. I honestly can't read some of them for the life of me, and I don't know how other people have like interpreted it, because I'm like, what does that say? Like, I don't know if that's just me or what, but I'll put them on the screen. One of them said, I murder so I may come back. Which, is that like religious? I don't know. Another one said some stuff that I can't read, which if you can, please put it in the comments because I'm really curious to know what other people think it said. And then under that it said, "We killed Martin Brown," then some more shit. And then I believe they're calling the police screws. And then I saw other people saying that it had the S slur, but I can't even see where the fuck that is, so I'm confused. But they were talking shit about the police essentially. And then finally, the kicker, "We did kill Martin Brown, fuck off you bastard." Who's the bastard though? Like who? And then all of this creepy ass shit was just completely dismissed and disregarded, just like every other single incident in this entire fucking story. So they did nothing, despite notes that literally said, "We killed the 4-year-old boy who you just found dead a couple days ago." After Martin's death, both Norma and Mary would talk to his auntie a lot, so she used to babysit them both. And they would ask her a lot of questions about Martin, about the family, how everyone's doing, like how his mum is, how they're coping, just a lot of questions to do with Martin. And then just before his funeral, the girls like just rocked up and knocked on the door and like asked, "Hi, can we see Martin?" And the auntie was confused. She's like, "Well, I know you know that he's dead, so no, you can't see Martin because he's dead." Like, she obviously said it nicely, not like what I'm saying it like, but why am I like this? But then the girls said, "Yeah, we know, we want to see his body," to which she was confused as fuck and was like, "No, you can't see his body? That's weird." Anyway, because of Martin's death, the community really came together and they decided that they were gonna start demolishing some of these houses that the kids played in, because it just really wasn't safe for kids to be hanging out in these like old, rotted, abandoned places. So they decided as a community that they're gonna start tearing them down. So on the 31st of July, a bunch of people like gathered around one of these houses as it was getting demolished, and there was a big group of the neighborhood kids there, including Mary and Norma. So obviously while the adults are like doing the demolishing, the kids just ended up like going and hanging out and playing. And Mary and Norma ended up playing with a little boy called Brian Howe, and he was only 3 years old. And they started talking to him and they started to lead him away to a field to play with him there instead of with everyone else. Of course, hours later that night, he was reported missing. So the community comes together and they start to look for little Brian. And that included Mary and Norma. They decided to help search for this little missing boy. That night, he was found dead in that same field, half naked. His hair had been all cut up and like thrown around him, and then he had stab wounds on his legs that were really shallow, and they sort of appeared to be like done by the same scissors that would have cut his hair. That's basically what the police summed it up to be. And then there was also the letter M carved into his stomach. 3 years old. This time it was obviously a murder, and like a pretty sadistic one at that, so it got treated differently. This time the cause of death was ruled as strangulation, but they basically came to the conclusion that whoever did it wasn't strong enough, so they had to like gradually put on more and more pressure as time went on. Like if it had been like a strong man, they would have like done that straight away and it would have like been a quicker death, but they ruled it as like a really slow strangulation where the pressure just gradually got like more intense until he died. So because of that, they sort of come to the conclusion that whoever did this was weaker and potentially a child. They also determined that the cuts on his leg were post-mortem, which means it happened after he died, and half of the M was post-mortem, the other half was done at the time of death. So it means whoever killed him did half an M, left or sat there with him, and then came back and did the other half of the M, which is really weird. Because of the similarities between this case and the Martin Brown case, they decided to reopen Martin's case because it wasn't fair for him to be ruled like a natural death. And so they changed it to homicide. So it was publicly announced that the two deaths were linked and that there was a possible killer on their hands. And it was also publicized that that killer could potentially be a child. After that was announced, the police got numerous fucking phone calls from the community saying, hey, you need to check out Maribel. You need to check out Maribel. You need to fucking check out Maribel. Something's not right. If there's a child killer, I think that it's her. And I mean, at first the police were like, yeah, okay, like we'll get to it when we get to it. Like we'll do our own investigation. But Maribel kept pushing herself to the front of every line of every press conference, of every discussion that had anything to do with the cases, with the murders, every community rally, like everything. Her face just kept popping up. Like she wanted to know everything. She wanted to be at everything. She needed all of the information, and like she couldn't help herself. She always had to be at the front. She always had to be there. So when her name kept popping up and her fucking face kept popping up, they were like, okay, we need to ask this girl some fucking questions. Of course, good old Billy Bell wasn't gonna let that happen very easily because he himself didn't really like police very much, being a criminal and all. So when the police came around to ask her questions, he basically told them to fuck off, and if you don't, I'll let the dogs out on you. So that didn't really work out very well. But luckily, shortly after that, the police got a tip-off by a parent and their son, who claims the son was a witness to the Brian Howe murder. This boy was only 9 years old, but just like Norma, he had a mental disability which made him mentally much younger, so he didn't really understand what was going on even till this point. Like, he had just gone and told his mum, and his mum had been the one that's like, oh my god, like, comprehended how bad this was, whereas he still didn't really understand. They were able to get the story out of him, and he said that Maribel had informed him that little Brian had a sore throat, and so she told him that she needed to massage his throat to make it feel better for him, because poor little Brian like doesn't want a sore throat, so I have to massage it. From there, she just tightened her grip more and more and more until he